Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. All the guests on our program tonight attest to there being traditional or cultural mindsets and practices that are keeping Botswana from creating wealth. Last week, Nicollete Mashile spoke of there being some traditional or cultural mindsets and practices that stand in the way of wealth creation.
It's very important that we financially plan, and in African culture, you don't financially plan. Another thing that we don't do in the African culture is that we don't ask our parents what they're doing with their money, because money is not supposed to. That's how we will handle it. What is this? This is how we've got women who are being validated by money, because women are never taught about money.
Adding to the conversation tonight is Key Wealth Chief Executive Officer Mogomotsi, who appears to be very much in agreement. But what is wealth? Who do we consider to be wealthy between the young executive living in a mansion in Pakalani and driving expensive cars that have all been obtained via credit from the bank in this era of high job insecurity? Or is it the woman of modest means who has built a house in Buntleng out of her own pocket and is able to feed and clothe her children using various sources of income? True wealth means different things to different people. For some, it is financial security, being able to meet your needs, recurring or otherwise. For others, it is having a passive income that can sustain your lifestyle, giving you the freedom to work when you choose to. And for others still, it is being able to leave behind assets that generate an income for your family for several generations after your passing. Mogomotsi asserts that there are lies that consumers have been told, such as, quote, buying a house in Gaborone is always an asset. To show that you are working, you have to buy a car. And a job is the solution to capitalizing yourself. We speak to Key Wealth CEO Mogomotsi about the attitudes and mindsets they find themselves up against when looking to, quote, rewire and reignite the intrinsic philosophies people have about debt and money.
What I've seen of recent, or what I've seen ever since I've been in this journey of educating people, I've seen that there's a difficulty in cultural, shift. We still hold those beliefs that rich people are devilish. So in actual, what we then do is we tend to be scared of money and we live in a scarcity mentality. So what I've seen is people are resistant. People tend to not embrace change and embrace that they have to get the understanding of how money works. Now people are still subscribing to an ideology of going to school, getting a job, and then falling into debt. So people think that that's the best way of doing it, and they're still subscribing to that. So we're still trying to get people out of the rat race, out of understanding that that's not the only way of creating wealth, because in actual fact that is not creating wealth, that is being a debt slave. So we're getting people to understand that there's another way of doing it, of now increasing your financial IQ and your capacitating yourself in terms of financial education. So the most important thing is people to understand how money works. So the resistance and also the cultural shift is what we've been facing in terms of getting people out of what they already know and trying to get them to know better things.
Which tools of yours have you found to be the most effective? Seeing that there does appear to be such a wealth of information, especially with regards to financial education, there's the internet, but people still struggle. So what is the most effective way of changing people's mindsets about money have you found in your experience?
We have realized that the only way, because you see when you talk about money, it's sort of a secretive issue, and people are scared of talking about money. Even in households, people don't talk about money. So what we have realized is we go to people's offices, we make presentations, and then we make them aware that you need to understand how money works so that they are able to come to us for help. And we have recently launched a fintech product, which is it's called the Wealth Management Portal, so that we can bridge the gap between financial education and accessibility to that information. So what we have seen, even though we're moving into the fintech space, which is a bit sophisticated, we still also need to understand that the landscape, the financial landscape and the level of understanding in Botswana is still at a lower level. So we still have to take people through the normal way of education, through presentations, which we have seen that it works. And also, through attending, because we have attended a lot of wellness days where we have a bigger outreach, and then also we do it through radio. I mean, we have been having radio shows on Gebs FM, Juma FM for the past year, where we educate people. Those are the media platforms which we disseminate financial information. Look, this is a new thing. People didn't know where to get information. The only information they got was through financial institutions. Now, as Key Wealth, we're an independent financial planner. What we're saying is we're a fiduciary. We work at the best interest of you, not a product-based institute. So we want to give you a holistic information. We want to give you the proper information so that by the time you make a decision, you are well informed and you choose the right product.
Stay with us. When we return after the break, Mogomotsi France continues to share more about negative mindsets or counterproductive mindsets we have towards wealth creation.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues, as we are here with the founder of Key Wealth, Mogomotsi France, talking about the necessary mindset shifts that are needed to create wealth in this country. You have some very interesting ideas. You say Botswana have come to believe some lies when it comes to money and debt. One of them being that having a job is a good way of capitalizing oneself. Another one being that to show that you're successful and you're working, you have to buy a car. And the third one being that owning a house in Gaborone is an asset. How are these lies?
Look, we have been wired to believe that owning a house is an asset. Better yet, owning a house in Gaborone is an asset. And I can tell you, it's the biggest mistake and biggest liability that one can ever do. Because you see, we sold this idea that when you have a house in Gaborone, it has value. Yes, in real estate, you can make money through capital appreciation, which is rising in value of that property. But let me tell you something. Buying a house in Gaborone makes you a debt slave. Because why? I always quote this. I always say that in Setswana, madi ga irelo mo Gaborone, madi a jelwa mo Gaborone. You see, when you look at a house, a normal house in Gaborone, or 3 beds house in Gaborone is about 1.1 million, and someone will pay about 10,000 for that. The rental that they will get from that house is about 4,000. So that means you have to top up over that loan for you to be able to pay the installment to the bank. Now, I might be saying something that is contrary to popular belief, but I can say that that asset is not an asset to you, it's an asset to the bank. But you see, the banking system is good, it's there to help you to leverage. But I think it's people that are not using it wisely to their favor, because debt and credit are meant to facilitate or even help you to leverage to create wealth. We have seen a lot of Botswana buying houses in and around Gaborone. I mean, we have seen Block 10, Solofelo East, and we can name them. People buying and rushing to buy houses there. But you see, right now, if you want to buy a plot in Solofelo, it's about 1,000 pula per square meter. That means a 400,000 square meter, 400 square meter, you buy that 400,000. I can take that money and go buy a house. So go buy a plot in Mogoritsani. I'll get a bigger plot and I'll build small houses so that I can get more rent. I've been quoted saying that I don't like owning a house. I like owning houses. Why? Because if you own a house, you think that is your house. It's not your house. It belongs to the bank. So what happens is, if you own houses, you build houses that people can rent from you. A house is only an asset when it gives you rental. Now, we have been raised up in a society that says once you get a job, it's success. That's the wrong way of looking at things. Now, after you get a job, what happens is now you want to build a house or to buy a house and drive a big house and a big car. And then from there you go to work every day and you do routine stuff. You become a slave to employment. In actual fact, you are forgetting that the job that you're working at is not even yours. It doesn't belong. Remember, last year in November alone, we lost about 12,000 jobs. So that means your job is not secure. It's a tree that belongs to someone else. They can decide to cut it at any time. So the only way you're going to create intergenerational wealth is when, you know, the house that you buy will give you a rental that is more than what you are paying at the bank. In actual fact, what we say at Key Wealth is all your loans must be paid by other people. You shouldn't be paying your loans. So buying a house, I take it as a mistake, but more especially in Gaborone. I can tell you that where can you create wealth in terms of real estate? You know, I always tell people, look at places like Sese. Obviously, you have to look at the timelines to say, okay, how long will the mine be? Joining mine, will it be there for? But you see, you can still cash out now because Sese right now, 2.5 rents about 2.5 to 3,000, right? But the cost of acquisition of buying the plot there is lower. If you look at places like Mupani, if you look at places like Palape, Kasani, Maung, Kazungula, and if you are well aware, Mashoro, because there's a gas project, people don't understand these things. They all rush into investing in Gaborone, but then they become debt slaves. I mean, you need to understand these things because, our parents, this is our parents' idea. It's an old idea, it doesn't work. I mean, in this day and age, you become successful because of information. So the only way you're going to be successful in real estate, for example, as you said, is when you understand that, buying a house, you shouldn't attach emotions to it. Buying a house, you should look at it with an investment eye, from an investment perspective, to say, how is it that this house is actually going to create wealth for me? Remember, wealth is when your passive income exceeds your living expenses. See, a lot of people live beyond their means, and they finance the difference with debt, and it happens a lot. And I always say this, I can tell you, if you go to a bank and then you ask how much you qualify for, and they tell you that you qualify for about 2 million, what usually people do is they go out and buy a house worth 2 million, right? And they stay in the house, which is another biggest mistake. And what they do is they will never be able to create wealth, because wealth should be progressive. Your first investment or first property should allow you to invest in the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. And I'm not challenging, I'm not saying real estate people are doing anything wrong, but I can tell you, if a real estate guy comes to you and say, you're not buying a house, you're buying a home, the next thing you do is, because it's a home, you attach emotions. You say, oh, I'm going to raise my children in that house. Yes. And then you start, attaching emotions to the kitchen, to this.
Planting trees that are going to take you 10 years to grow.
Yeah, you're planting trees in a house that doesn't belong to you. I mean, come on. So, you see, in this day and age, we need to understand that jobs are not secure. So people must think in a progressive way. The African setup is in such a way that we are still subscribing to ideologies of in the Western world, what they call the baby boomers. Now we're millennials, but we're in a situation where things are moving. I'll give you an example. The bank has recently cut the lending rate, which is about, the lending rate is 5.5. It was 5.5%. Now it's 5%. And the prime is always lending rate plus 1.5%, which basically means that now people have the cost of acquisition in terms of you can borrow, you can acquire a house less cheaper. You can actually qualify for a better, for more than what you used to qualify for maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Guess what people are going to do? People are going to start refinancing their houses to buy cars. In actual fact, you must be refinancing your houses, if at all you're going to refinance, to invest in more property, to invest in more stocks, to invest in something that is going to give you, a passive income and create wealth for you.
I definitely believe some necessary conversations have been started. But do stay tuned, there's much more coming your way after the break.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues. Last week we featured the vivacious Nicollete Mashile, interrogating her assertion that African culture is keeping us poor. In the process, we mentioned how the young South African social entrepreneur, media personality, and financial educator had picked herself up by her bootstraps after finding herself disowned by her father for having failed the university studies that he had spent years paying for, which forced her to end up sleeping on the couch of her sister's one-bedroom apartment. Many of you were curious as to how she managed to raise herself up from rock bottom and become the property investor and entrepreneur that she is today, managing to buy her first 2 properties cash. Asking how she has managed to become a trusted voice in the world of financial education, now hosting television and radio shows on the subject. And with over 100,000 followers on Facebook alone, all at the age of 29, without even a university degree. Tonight, we bring back our vibrant guest to hear her personal journey from youthful folly to financial astuteness. We'd just like to know your story. Just tell us your story thus far.
So I'm going to tell you who Nicollete is. Every time I get asked this question, I get so confused.
You don't know where to begin.
Yeah, because it's, you know, and it's only now that you start realizing as you get older and older that your story actually starts long ago, you know what I mean? It starts in childhood. But I think for me, I'll just highlight some of the things that are really important and things that shaped my story. So as a child, my father wanted great education for us. So we lived in Bushbuck Ridge in South Africa. And he moved us from Bushbuck Ridge, my sister and I. My sister was 10, I was 8 years old. And he moved us into a flat. And he was supposed to stay with us, but he never did. He always drove home. So home was at least 2 hours away. So my sister and I stayed in a flat. The two of us, she was, as I said, she was 10, I was 8, she was cooking. And that's how I realized that not only do I see that, that's where I learned a lot of the, you know, my independence, I'm a very assertive person in most of the things that I do. I've got very strong opinions. Sometimes I need to be like corrected, and but I love it. You know, I love being corrected. I always find that correction comes with a lot of learning, and that for me is really what my life is based on. It's just I've made so many mistakes that everything has been a lesson throughout my entire life. I then moved to Rhodes University, spent the whole 4 years there doing absolutely nothing. Gosh, I spent my father's money. I chowed my father's money. You know when people say they chowed their youth, that's what I did. I enjoyed my youth. But what it really did is that after I failed my degree at Rhodes University and I went to Johannesburg in 2010, I realized that I was on the ground. And the thing that you realize that when you're on the ground, there's no other place to go other than up. And because of that, I kind of let myself to understand that everybody else understands that you have now failed, but you know you have not failed. Even for me, that might have looked like failure to everybody else, but I knew that's when my story actually began, because I was spoiled, properly spoiled. Like I was an actually spoiled child. I had to learn a very important lesson with failing my degree, and that lesson was, your father's not going to be, because I was a daddy's child. Everything goes, every single thing. So I think from there on, I